Dobar dan i dobrodošli u Medija centar Čaglavica na debatu koju uz podršku ambasade Francuske na Kosovu organizuje Medija centar na temu od objave do odgovornosti.
Since notice to accountability and why the path lasts so long. As we in the position right now and as we wrote, we have a debate structured with arguments and what has happened after research stories, especially the ones that point out corruption, misusing of the public resources, and the questions for the public interest. The focus of this conversation will be institutional reaction. Was it our panelists today will be Ljabenot Lapuštica, who is head of the legal service in Kosovo, Darko Dimitrijević from Radio Goraždevac, Jovana Filipović, lawyer, and Zoran Savić, project manager in Organization Active. For this debate, we have called representatives from the prosecutor's office, but we had no response from them so far. First, I'm going to give the word to lawyer Jovana Filipović, and who will tell us, is it the institutions, police, agency for the fight for the corruption, and other structures are in obligations to respond to this when they see a story that can contain elements, let's say, for a crime or something else, or human rights violation or something else, which legal mechanism they will use, and what is preventing them to respond in timely manner. Good afternoon. I am really glad that we are here to talk about this topic because we have a lot of media articles that are showing that maybe some crime has happened, but we do not see a court epilogue and starting all. And the prosecutor's office has done something about it. We are here today to talk about especially that the state bodies, the prosecutor's office, police, that they are obligated to, when they have a certain suspicion, to start with this, and when there is possibility that the certain persons has done some crime, especially corruptions, violation of the human rights, or something similar. Here we are not talking about their will of the prosecutor's office. Can they do it? And maybe they will not. This is mandatory. That is in the law. In the current law, that is the Article 6, that they are obligated, the prosecutor's office is obligated when they receive the information from the police, from the private institutions, from the media, or from some other things that are in the prosecutor's office, or maybe from a person. The media are recognized as a source of information, so whatever is in the media, this is on the prosecutor's office, and they are obligated to do with the suspicion, is it justified or not, to start with this. So they are not obligated automatically to start with to investigate this, but they need and they are obligated to check the information, whether is there any crime or not. That is in Article 7. So the court and the police are obligated to see the facts, which facts are important to start with the procedure. So in that sense, we cannot talk about whether some media articles are just gossip, or maybe there's journalists that they're writing that out of whim. and everybody else has to respect that, but the police and the state bodies, especially the prosecutor's office, they need to check whether that is a gossip or that is a certain reasons that are really important and that are connected with us to start with the court case. So when we are talking about that the prosecutor's office and the police are obligated, so maybe we can talk about that if you do not react according to the information which are publicly available, maybe that is a crime. So the persons who are involved in that, maybe they can start for the criminal responsibility, that they have done a crime, misusing of the positions, and that if they do not react when they have received any information, in this case that the information could be a crime, and maybe that can be misusing, as already said, maybe that will be a disciplinary actions, responsibility, accountability of the persons. In this concrete case, from this media house, we have heard a number of complaints for the institutions. In this case, the inspection, which inspection in this case, but I'm really sorry that from the prosecutor office they did not respond to give us their opinion and their point of view, from which reason we do not see the epilogue of this media, what the media wrote. Thank you, Jovana. When Jovana already said about our stories, and besides our stories that we are doing for years about illegal constructions, we have done also for the story for the public water supply. That was a project of 5 million euros. Never got live. That is the objects that are worth €500,000 that are now places for landfill, devastated places, and obviously we do not have any reaction from someone's. Now we're going to hear from Ljabinot Lapuštica, who is the chief of the legal office in Kosovo. BIRN is recognized for the research stories, and we have a reaction of the institutions, and a lot of the stories have gone through. Can you tell us, in short, the statistics for the reactions of the institutions? We had maybe 10 people, more than 10 people arrested. We have the court epilogue. So in practice, do you have cases that the institutions did not react on your research stories, investigative stories of misusing of the public resources, or some other questions for the which is for the public? So what they are doing in this?
Vetë fakti që ju e përmendet Budimir që I keni ftu prokurorina.
I agree with the lawyer in most of the things that she said. She raised the issue and the legal cadre that determines the obligation of investigative institution, police and prosecution to react in cases when we as journalists display corruption affairs, public procurement and other cases. But what I consider very interesting in Kosovo especially, at cases of corruption, why there is no immediate reaction. From our research and from the research of other organizations, especially in cases of corruption, it is documented that usually investigative organs act when officials mentioned in corruption affairs not to be in power anymore. Only after they have finished their mandate, then they start their prosecution. This is an indication of the fact that the justice authorities have tendency to be careful in relation to the officials and wait for the change of functions in order to start criminal investigations. It is fairly sad that our researchers as journalists, as media, I consider they are very close to the indictment. They have the factual basis, they have the description, they have the suspects, and all what is remained is the legal qualification. It's the monopoly of the prosecution. We tell them everything. But in many cases, I say, and I consider that there are political interferences, they tend in a way to keep the case silent or minimally to shock absorb the case in public in order the public forget about the case and then to do a criminal investigation which many times does not meet the criteria and it does not exceed the findings of the journalist. This in one case speaks of the prosecution and on the other hand it speaks of the journalists. And not all the journalists are that investigative, but in the large scale there are very qualitative journalists who research corruption, money laundering, and the similar. What I consider that we should do more in relation to what was said by the lawyer at the legal basis, as an organization, I've been working in Bern for 11 years, and we have seen that the issue of action ex officio is not efficient. What have we decided? How can we overcome it? We have decided that every research of ours, we are to write legal acts describing the acts one by one. We attach the material to it and we hand over in written form, and we ignore the electronic form. We do it in person, in written, in hard copy, and we send to the institution and we protocol it. Why do we do it? We do it for many reasons, but the most important thing is that there were cases whenever the investigation echoed in public, other media wrote about it. When we sent questions to the prosecution if the investigation has started concerning the Bern, they said we are not informed of such an investigation. And what is the bad thing? We can suppose, and the reasonable doubt is that they are informed, because we are a small country and we know how many spoons our neighbor has, and let alone the other things. The prosecution has been informed. He cannot prove that he has not. And in order to overcome this obstacle, we have decided to follow every investigation of ours. We have invented a new phase, not to end our work in publication, but to make them aware in written form and to leave the papers to them. In this way, we managed to build a system of legal documents, and we do a follow-up of those documents every 3 months. Now we know that in Kosovo, according to the Criminal Code of Kosovo, the Code of Procedure, the investigation time frame is 2 years with the possibility of extension for 1 year. And every 6 months, and in large cases every 3 months, we ask the institutions what is their action. We saw that there is no reaction from them, or there is action from the former government officials. Their mandates have been completed, and then we have the initiation of criminal proceedings. You have noticed in Albania as well, and I think it's Balkan mentality. What else is important? The prosecutorial council, with the insistence of the civil society organization, including media, has drafted a kind of a form which is accessible in their web page, in which they mention some basic information if we want to send them information. This is a positive step because it is an interactive action, but at the same time it lays the burden at the media and CSOs to fill forms and to submit them. But we have decided to send them in writing in person. And the main reason was the fact that we want to have proof that we have made them aware. And when we have such proof, we activate what the lawyer said. Their disciplinary action, whether they did not act, or criminal responsibility if they kept the case silent and left it. And when we speak about holding the cases in the drawers, we know that thousands of cases are prescribed or reach the status of limitations. So the belated case, when they cannot proceed it criminally, but we are witnesses that the target cases for the visa liberalization, which was a criteria of liberalization, they reached the status of limitations and they could not have a legal status. In order to complete the first part of discussion, we have noticed that there are various reactions according to the information that we send. They act differently in corruption cases. They can act differently in cases of domestic violence and differently in cases of terrorism. If you send information about an act or issue that could contain elements of terrorism, they act very quickly. And if we speak of religious terrorism, like in 2014-16, every publication in media, based or unbased, had resulted in a criminal investigation. What was the epilogue or final result? The public loses its concentration and it's not aware of the beginning of the case, because we have the other factor that in court cases can last for years, and it is natural that the public get acquainted, they find the violations, and the institution does the investigation just for the sake of appearances to fulfill the legal obligation, but not necessarily to bring them in front of the justice, regardless of how grave the violation is. We have cases about the 53 million euros for the highway Pristina-Skopje, and we know that the case has been relativized, and after some years they will not be interesting that we have lost 53 million euros. This is their intention that we have reached to identify. In order to be negative and critical, there are cases when they act swiftly. There are prosecutors that we send the case directly to them because we know that they were interested or they were working in this case, and our findings are sent to the prosecutor Labinot, for instance. We do not send it to the institution, but in person to the prosecutor, because they will act swiftly, because they had a similar case or the case is linked with the cases that they have under investigation. But the reaction is not that fast, and it's very worrisome for us because, as I said, the case will be old. Thank you for the first part. I hope I was not too long.
Hvala vam. Thank you, Labinot, that we're going to give some information, or if I've understood Labinot clearly. Darko, what is your experience in general? You can also talk about with the Serbian medias, because you are working with everybody else, you know the situation. Do we have reaction from the institutions? According to some journalist articles, and how, in which number they respond? Are they timely, or we are missing them? Let me just. How do we report to the prosecutor office? The paradox is that as someone who is working since 2002 as a journalist, I do not have a connection with the prosecutor's office. They're not going to respond on some simple questionnaires from our side. So let's not talk about something else. When we are talking about the reaction itself, not only from the court and the prosecutor's office, from the media articles, I think that what media is pointing out is only the public. The reactions from the institution depends, unfortunately, from some power centers. Maybe is on one side political, on the other side the criminal. We can talk about maybe that is some other topic. Let me just mention a couple of cases that happened in the past decade and a half, which are, after many years, reached to the court. Maybe some of them are not. You do all remember case in Brezovica, illegal construction in the national park. I see a lot of colleagues here, including the media center, that are host of this debate, that we were reporting this. So they have done in some way that was allowed by the political power, that some has done something, some criminal deeds that they have come to that they were processed. So we have a case that one of our colleagues asked the questions. I think that was a mayor back then, when he asked about the quality of the water. He was fired from RTK. He asked the questions about the quality of the water and he got fired. So that is the problem. And we journalists, we cannot have a lot of influence. But this is the systematic disease. Here in Chaglavica, you have illegal constructions. A radio, KIM, was reporting about that. Media Center was reporting about that. We have no reactions from the institutions, not only from the prosecutor's office, not from the local administration. They have done nothing about it. So you already mentioned about the public water supply. And when we are talking about my personal examples, I would like to mention one really, really interesting case of the house of Milorad Djokovic, because of his probably process for this, of his estate, that after 15 years when he was integrated in the local community, but when he got the court decision that his estate to be gave back to him, his neighbors remembered that he is a war criminal after the 15 years that they were living together. And when he was processed, they have demolished his house. We gave so many stories and articles about that, and we have no reactions from the prosecutor's office, from the municipality. We have no information who demolished his house. We have the decision from the Supreme Court that his estate will be given back to him into the cadastre office, but on the other side, we have a problem from the Serbian environment. This is the ethnical issue. I have to mention this. When we have attacks on the journalists, that can be a separate topic. When we're talking about this, I'm not sure. Do we have some cases resolved? We have lawyers here that for these attacks on journalists. When I say ethnic context, I'm giving my personal example. Last year, we have 2 attacks on our journalists in Gorazdevac. One attack happened in Rugova when we were talking about the environment over there. And who attacked us? was we have found out that later because we could not find out in the police. Later we found out that was the veteran from the KLA. After some time, the police told us that there is an element of crime, and he was pushing us. But from the prosecutor's office, when they found out who is in the question, they said, we have no elements of the crime. On the other side, when people from Srpska Lista attacked us on the door on our redaction, he was immediately arrested. So if we start from this example, we can come to the conclusion that some things are not processed according to the law and as is foreseen by the law, but on some ethnical background. I think in this second case, we had the decision, but we have dropped this because we think that everybody will be the same before the court, because the law is same for everybody. From also my personal example, I have to mention, and our Kosovo system is in the focus because we have a lot of investments from the Serbian system, and at the same time from the Kosovo, we had the Kosovo investments. A lot of media wrote many stories about it, and we cannot even see in the future that will be processed in the court. When I'm talking about the place that I'm coming from, we had a situation that the building for the new kindergarten is supposed to be built only on the paper. So let's say around, 60 kids which are 5 to 6 years old, they're not going to have this building. And when we talk about it, when we give the series of the articles about that one, the construction machine came and they started with the constructions. I didn't see that any responsibility about the deadline with the starting construction about this. So we have a number of similar cases with the corruptions. Now this winter, the pellet arrived, but for whom? There is no building. So we are really far from this kind of cases, processing these cases. So also one more personal example, when we are, let's say in a municipality of Peja, the park was under construction and that stopped. The construction stopped. We were reporting about it many times, but we have no reaction. That is a systematic problem, that we are going back to the beginning. So some of this processes, just to reach the reaction from the institutions, the political power center or the criminal power center has to give a go. Whatever. So this is telling us that this system is not ripe enough. There is no possibilities for them to give a response on some simple puzzles of the justice, fight for the corruption, equality in front of the institutions for everybody. So this is really, really a serious, systematic problem. We can talk about it, but we have no mechanisms. We have reported one time, though. Yes, we did reported that to the police when they attacked our journalists, but we did not report the cases that we are talking about, because I think that the media article is enough evidence for the prosecutor's office to research or to investigate the case. I didn't see it, I'm not obligated, but when you have a big public reaction about it, it is impossible that someone will see this article. So if the media centers had a story, everybody else get it from media center. So it is impossible to have the vacuum in between that story, that news, in between the people who has to process this one. So Lebanon, would you like to add something?
Just a minute.
Institucionet në Kosovë, policia dhe prokuroria në veçanti. Unë kam shumë ish kolegë prokuror që direkt prej birni kanë dalë, po kam edhe kontaktet përditshme me prokuror dhe I di shumë mirë si funksionojnë. Ata janë të mbuluar objektivisht, janë të mbuluar nga ngarkesa me punë. Secili prej tyne mundet në mënyrë matematikore me tregu që unë I kam
say that we have 1,000 cases, 200 working days, 200 cases within a year, and he reasons his inability, be it to finish a case in case or to see something that is transmitted in media. So what we are left is we should inform them with the case and about their performance evaluation. When we speak of judges, it is the most transparent system in the region. What does it mean? Every judge, in addition to the judgment that we see the list of cases that he has completed and the list at work. What does it say? It enables us to see whether they are treating the cases in turn or not. If we look at the circumstantial mechanisms to place them in, if they have selective cases, they treat someone, they do not respect the turn, how they receive the case or urgent one. Because Darko mentioned the cases of journalists, they are cases of priority, but they were not always as such. In the recent years, they are as a result of the pressure by the journalist associations in Kosovo, especially AJ, Association of Journalists of Kosovo. Now, every prosecution and court has assigned a coordinator. In the past, they did not have. They were treated as other cases. So we are slowly consolidating a system that makes cases urgent in a strategic way, and this enables us to follow better and to see whether it is their negligence, it is objective inability, or selective treatment of cases, be it even upon an ethnical basis. But I believe that no journalist is happy with the treatment of these cases. No punishment or punishment are too lenient. This poses a serious problem, and which of us coped with such cases?
Dobro, hvala. Organizacija Activist is from the North Mitrovica. Zoran, you have worked as a journalist in Kosovo. What is your experience when you worked as a journalist and now when you're working in the organization Active? How do you point out about this kind of cases when we need the institutional reactions? You had many reports from Active about the violation of the language law, the violation of the human rights. In your organization, some of the media, you have a lot of that you were like, let's say, mentioned as you were spies, that you are working with espionage. So, do you have any reactions? You wrote to the prosecutor's office. Did you inform the prosecutor's office, or you are only you have mentioned this in the? First of all, thank you for the invitation. But first, I have to focus. I'm not going to go such deep and far as Darko. Just just let's see 2025, when my organization lost 7 months of energy and resources about some accusations. The first one came in June or July, that we started as from one organization, Octopus, which are NGO or not NGO, government. First of all, there is accusations for the hybrid war, that we are leading a hybrid war with Kosovo, that we are spying for the official Belgrade. Of course, no legal basis of that. So we have seen some reports that they are in violation with the law. When we were pointing out of some signs over there, the first accusation came back then, after when Arnaud was arrested. Somehow our director was connected with that he's also involved in espionage. No legal basis on it. The second one came in October, that in the prime time of the Clan Kosovo, when they have shown our pictures, or everybody who works in active, and there was accusations that we are connected with BIA in Serbia, that we are working against Kosovo, and especially when you say something like that, especially that is connected with me, that I'm living in Bošnjačka Mahala, it is not all the same when there is accusations as serious as this. Of course, that was a report that was presented in 2024. Not only our organizations are involved. We have 5 more organizations involved back then. But if from some reasons we are the target. We were the target. That was about police service, monitoring of the police service. That was publicated back then, when we are showing for the violation of the law of the police, especially with the emblems that they are wearing. When we have the big Albania or the Punisher emblems, that is not the subjective feeling, that is only personally. So that report was published 2024 in December. But when Clan Kosovo, TV station Clan Kosovo, in September, 10 months afterwards, they had that as exclusive. They shown as exclusive. And that was already 10 months in the web page of our organization. But you have announced back then that you're going to report that to the prosecutor's office. Yes, we are going towards that. Just to put everything in the context, of course, but institutional reaction was missing. We have reported that right away. The only reaction that we got, let's say half reaction, was for the advisory body for journalists, that they have broke the ethic code. We have no information from the prosecutor's office. Let's say already 6-7 months passed, and I wanna also mention one more case, that our director was attacked in 2002. We have no reaction, no information after 4 years. There is a case, but we have no epilogue. The official response was that there was an internal rotation. I do not know what that means, but we have no response from the prosecutor's office about any case that happened, even for the last year. This is only a part of it, but we have a lot of it. Unfortunately, we are suffering the consequences as organization, and at the same time, according to that non-reaction from the institution, everybody has the open card, the carte blanche, that he can do whatever he wants with no consequences. Not only they ain't going to be held accountable, because of course, obviously, they have broke that ethical code. You have that independent body that you can go to, but official response was that they do not have the official response that they're not in their jurisdiction. So you do not have to be a long-time journalist that in one article you can see the violation of the ethical code. So we came to that part, that ethical part or ethnic part, that every case is connected with it. We had the Serbian Association. They have reacted, but on the other side, we do not have the response from the Kosovo Association unit. You do not have the response from the institutions, but in Kosovo, no one called us so far. Why you are a spy? So yeah, yes, of course, simply we are suffering the consequences, and that is the biggest problem. So just let me mention one more thing, that from the internal conversation from our partners, Albanian organizations that we are working with for so many years, they received the comments, why you are working with spies? Why? So we are suffering from these consequences, not anybody else. So, Jovana, please. We heard so far that the journalists are going directly to the prosecutor's office or to the prosecutor itself. So now, in that case, we see that the journalist wants that story to get the epilogue in the institutions. And journalists also, we lawyers, we are taking this job that the prosecutor is supposed to do according to the law. So the prosecutor's office, it is in the law that they are obligated to react according to the information that they're going to receive. Have they heard? Have they seen? Maybe you overcome some 5 information or 5, but if you see that this is systematically and it is repeated in every situation, the problem is not only in one court case that they are not informed, but there is a number of examples. On the other side, when they want, the journalist is the person who will report that. Directly he is drawing a target on his own forehead. So in that court case, you will have the opposite side. And in this case, this can be bad for the journalist itself. On the other side, this can be a good thing, because that journalist, in that concrete case, he has the right to receive the information in timely manner from the prosecutor, to ask the meeting with the prosecutor. So there is a good and bad side, but in this case we have to we have to do the job of someone else, because there is a disciplinary accountability and the accountability according to the law. I was in the courtroom when someone was threatening, that is the criminal deed, the prosecutor was there, the judges were there, and no one reported. I reported as a lawyer. Even though that there is a criminal proceedings, we have received the number of the case. I think, as I recall, that happened in July last year. We have not called for the conversation. That happened in the courtroom. Everybody's seen that. Yes, it is. Now we have to go in front of the court for the proceedings. Somehow we are trying to influence on that on that services that are dealing with the public. That this is their job, that they have to communicate with media to follow up. Is there anything connected for some sort of crime that are interested for the public? So we have to see that the prosecutor's office would do what they're supposed to do and not to be selective. Not to be selective. We only ask that the prosecutor's office will do their job. I'm going to give you the microphone later on. Do you have any questions? Yes?
Some issues. First one, in Kosovo, it's not to be astonished. I heard cases that are mentioned by Darko and each of the panel members. There are very absurd cases in Kosovo and they never end. For instance, there is one of the most macabre cases that took place near Lipjan, which is known as the case of the hammer or Čekić. In the prosecution office, a person went with a hammer, and he said that this is used for murder, and he told him to go to the police. This is just to illustrate that we are very idealist. In fact, we are waiting for their reaction without asking them. The party goes to the court, brings the murdering thing, and then she tells him to go to the police. Or especially at the gender-based violence, the woman goes to the police, reports that her husband has beaten him. They would tell her, go to the prosecution for the case of the gun. There are many strange situations, many anomalies. It is being consolidated. That's why we should survive and take over the duties as journalists. Maybe they do not belong to us, but in fact, the journalism is going this direction to ask for accountability in addition to setting out the news and to send official requests. Concerning the case of Active, I think that they have filed an appeal at the press center. I am a member there. I am a product of Bern, and I remember that we have approved the request of Active against the medium that had inaccuracies in their news that Active is doing a hybrid war, if I'm right. Why am I mentioning this? This is very important that the Media Press Council, which is an NGO and it is considered as a moral intention, it's a very important proof in a court process. And if we raise the case in a court for fable, we can say that the Media Council does not have an executive power, but it qualifies it as news in contradiction with the Code of Ethics. Yasmina mentioned, if I'm not wrong, for 2 court processes for access to the invoices of ministers. We spend 6 years to get their invoices for lunches and dinners. These are not to be ashamed of. And something more at the prosecution, what happened? For prosecution cases, when we ask, the case is under investigation, or we can neither deny nor admit that the case is being. And then we have the Agency for Information and Privacy. It is doing a very good work to provide information to us journalists. And when we speak of the Agency for Information and Privacy, prosecution and police and all institutions wanted to find a kind of reasoning saying that we cannot approve the documents, even though the agency says that you can have it because the case is under investigation, it's taken over by the prosecutor. And we know that the prosecutor does not take the entire case file. And an NGO, Info, if I'm not wrong, from Ferizai, has contested in the court the decision of the Agency for Information and Privacy, saying that the prosecutor decisively says that access to documents and information prohibits the case. This is a good thing. It happened last week, if I'm not wrong, but it is a way out, a very good resolution for our journalists, that the decision of the agency and the prosecution, when they don't want to give us information, they will say that it has been sent to the court. This is another judicial cycle. Otherwise, we shall never be in the right path.
Everything what Labinot has mentioned, of course, we all have reactions. So how hard or how that reaction is. So if the report from the ombudsperson, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the 3 last reports from the ombudsperson was not ratified in the assembly. He have done nothing about the reports from the ombudsperson. What can we expect as journalists? We, as media in Kosovo, we are pointing out of the violation of the law. After that, we are the enemies of the system. That it is the same in Serbia and in Kosovo. Darko, is there any questions? Everything is clear. No, just in addition, that I already said at the beginning, according to everything that we heard, it is evidently that the institutions have not yet total independence. So we have these political power centers. When we are talking about the prosecutor's office, I can show you the messages with the portparole of the court. So I can show you the messages that they have responded only 3 or 4 times from PEA, from Mr. Nikci. So I'm not criticizing everybody. So I would like to praise the agency for the public that we have gone to a couple of times that are connected with the corruption. They reacted, and we have received what we have asked for from the certain institutions that are not big and important things, but it is shown that the agencies are ready to work, comparing with the prosecutor's office. It is not only the political and criminal influence on institutions, that is also in media. Unfortunately, we had that video clip that was Oliver Ivanovic was targeted. We have to research who ordered it, who paid for it. We are working on it in Kosovo and in Serbia, but even till today, we do not know who ordered that video clip. Let's not talk about some other things that are, let me tell you, that are really, really problematic. When we have corruptions in the questions that is talked in the media, that the prosecutor's office has to react. I cannot say that everything what I do as a journalist, I do not have to go to report to the prosecutor's office. My job is to inform the public. the prosecutor's office has to do their own part. Thank you. We are approaching the end of it. Labinot?
It was mentioned earlier from the lawyer, an element. If we journalists report a case in the prosecution office formally, I don't know, can we consider a party or an injured party if it was the proper translation of the terminology? But the Criminal Procedure Code and the Criminal Code of Kosovo, there are cases when we journalists denounce by email, by writing. The code gives us the privilege, the right to be freed from the witnessing. We can simply say that everything that we had, we sent them to you, and we refuse to go and witness in the court. We are freed from the responsibility according to the criminal code. We are privileged witnesses in this case. We are not obliged. If we want to, we can follow them. We had tens of such cases. After we send the documents to the prosecution office, they come to us and say, can you come as witnesses? No, whatever we had, we made it public, and we wanted to notify you. This is where our role ends.
Yes, of course, that there is that privileged relationship when something is reported from the side of the journalist, but he will get information in a timely manner, maybe, that when the journalist reported something with the name and the surname. And it will be done sooner, probably, if we go directly to the prosecutor's office than that from the media. In this case, what Labinot said, he can ask for the meeting directly with the prosecutor, and in that sense, it is better that it goes personally. Not because you are doing the job of the prosecutor. There are a lot of cases that are publicly active. The prosecutor who are involved, the only thing what he has to do, just the copy-paste the journalist article, and he have a case ready. We do not have that. When the public attention goes down, maybe they're not going to do nothing according to that. They're going to have the certain agreements about with the witnesses, about the recognition, and when there is no public interest, these cases will be justified as when we have indictment, and they are going to justify it with the public when the public interest goes down, even if we are waiting for the epilogue for years. Okay, thank you, everybody. Today's debate is finished. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you, everybody, that you were here present. I think we have heard a lot of new stuff. We have learned a lot of it, and I wish you a pleasant rest of the day.